Okay, Q&A number 3. I'm gonna keep my answers short, so if you need me to go into any more detail, just reach out and I can do that for you. Okay, question 1. I've tried weighted pull-ups and I couldn't feel my back. I felt better mind-muscle connection with body weight pull-ups. Why is that? All right, more than likely, that's just a technical breakdown from adding the weight. So you need to spend more time building your unweighted reps to strengthen that movement pattern, improve your technique, develop your mind-muscle connection. Spend some time with that, then you can add some weight to it and they should feel better. Next question. I've been using your routine of 1 push, 1 pull, and 1 leg daily. Are these exercises limited to just basic body weight compound exercises, or can I do, for example, handstand push-ups or weighted dips every day? So I wouldn't do the same exercise every single day. I would cycle in variations, and weighted dips and handstand push-ups are excellent exercises to cycle into your weekly training routine. Okay, next question. I'd love to know your thoughts on whether you recommend the same style of training for people training for endurance events with 18 to 15 hours of endurance work a week. Yeah, but keep in mind, you have a limited capacity to recover. So you're probably gonna have to reduce your total volume of strength training in order to make sure you're recovering enough. So you might consider a low volume push-pull leg split to ensure adequate recovery. That's a good option. Okay, next question. What's your take on an optimal grip for pull-ups? I've noticed your thumbs are over the bar in most videos. However, many other calisthenics athletes recommend a thumbs under the bar grip. Also, in what part of the hand should you hold the bar? Okay, to be honest, I don't think there's an optimal grip for everyone. What I would recommend is experiment with different grips and positions of the bar in your hand and pick whatever feels best, whatever gives you the best muscle activation, and whatever doesn't lead to an injury. Just go with that and don't worry what other people do. Next question. Will you ever suggest or try for yourself isometric movements like the isometric deadlift, since it's the only deadlift you can do without any equipment? To be honest, probably not. I think there are better exercises for developing the musculature of the posterior chain, things like bridges, hanging leg curls, glute ham raises, back extensions, those sorts of things. Those probably do a better job of building muscle with less fatigue, and I just enjoy them more, so I'd probably stick with that. Next question, can I ask how you can build muscle doing a body weight circuit? Yeah, it's pretty simple. So push your sets relatively close to failure and make sure you're resting enough to ensure your subsequent sets are high quality, okay? If you don't rest long enough, you could be compromising the muscle building potential of each set. Now you can overcome this by doing more total volume, but the simplest way is to just rest enough to make sure you can put forth high quality sets and a good effort with each set. Okay, next question. Do you think doing just basics like you promote will stimulate all the muscles enough? Let's say on my pull-ups, my lats give up, on my push-ups, my pecs give up. This means I'm getting close to failure on those muscles, but maybe my triceps, biceps, and shoulders are far from failure and thus not getting the hypertrophic stimulus. How do we address that? Okay, this is a really good question. When you're using compounds, certain muscle groups are going to be hit harder than others, but you can ensure more even growth over more muscle by introducing more variation and cycling through those variations. And this is because different variations emphasize different muscle groups more than others. So if that's not enough, you can make sure your total volume is sufficient, that you're hitting those muscles hard enough. And if that's not doing the trick, you can always add in a little bit of isolation work too. Next question. What I wonder about, in your videos, you're always doing push-pull leg exercises. Aren't you doing any exercises for your abs and lower back? Yeah, I'll do some hanging leg raises, some planks, and some bridge variations, stuff like that, but I don't do a whole lot of this, maybe a couple times a week for a couple sets. Next question. I've been doing a push-pull and legs daily for a while now. The only bummer is that my arms have lost size, so I started doing direct work for them again and they're back. The problem is when I do that, the workouts are longer and too much for daily workouts. Any input besides the obvious, just do arms 2 to 3 times a week? Yeah, so you have a few options. One, you can emphasize variations that target your arms a little bit more. So things like close grip push-ups, dips, close grip chin-ups, and just chin variations in general. That's gonna grow a little bit more arm musculature. Make sure you're doing enough total volume of those variations to stimulate enough growth. And if that doesn't work, you can add a dedicated arm finisher at the end of your session. So you're not doing arms multiple sets just a couple times a week. You could do just a single set finisher every single day, and that's gonna add very little time to your workout. Okay, next question. How would you program daily basic bodyweight exercises and a basic kettlebell exercise such as the swings and the Turkish get-up? Good question. So I think Turkish get-ups are best programmed as sort of skill work to do it before your basic bodyweight exercises, and swings are great as a finisher, and you can do them after your basic bodyweight exercises. And I think it'd be good to alternate these two. So one day Turkish get-ups and then the next day swings. And I think that'd be totally sufficient. Next question. As an older guy who has worked out most of my life in one form or fashion, I thought when I retired I would have plenty of time to train. However, I have found I cannot handle much volume at my age, and it's very easy for me to accumulate fatigue. I'm finding frequent workouts with less volume more beneficial and can work out daily with less fatigue. Have you had any experience with training older athletes in this way? Yeah, my oldest client was in his 80s, and I actually got him his first pull-up in his late 70s. So there's a few things I keep in mind when working with older clients. I tend to keep overall training volume low. I tend to stay further from failure, and I'm very careful about exercise selection because if you get injured when you're that age, it can threaten to disrupt your entire training process for the rest of your life. So make sure you pick your exercises very carefully, ones that don't injure you, that are sustainable, okay? You do that with limiting your overall volume and not training too close to failure. This is a very sustainable way to train. Okay, next question. I'm really out of shape and can only do 3 to 4 push-ups. For someone like me, would it be better to do 3 regular push-ups per set, or should I do an easier progression so I can do more reps? Do the easier progression that you can do more reps. Right now, push-ups are a strength exercise for you. You want to build a muscular base before you pursue strength exercises. So higher repetitions are going to be more useful than sets of 3. Okay, next question. Curious on if you view the one-arm push-up in the same light as the one-arm chin-up, worth the possible injury risk or a viable option for variety in pushing exercises. Same question, but with the handstand push-ups. Now, I don't view these movements as risky as the one-arm chin, but I do consider them strength and skill movements. So I would treat them as such. I wouldn't really organize them into your training as a replacement for a push-up or a replacement for a dip. Instead, I would program them like strength and skill movements. So grease the groove or a dedicated practice before your actual workout. You could use them as a strength and skill day exercise for a daily undulating periodization approach. That works too. But I wouldn't sub them in for volume work. Thoughts on not warming up for high rep sets. I've tried this recently where I haven't been doing any warm up sets. My theory is that the first 5 to 10 reps are so low intensity that they serve as the warm up for the harder reps. Yeah, it really depends. Like, it's personal preference and probably depends on the exercise too. Now, I sometimes like to get a few reps in to prepare for my work sets, but sometimes I don't really have time and I just jump right into the movement and perform my set. I personally don't really notice a big difference with higher repetition sets, but I think it's worth experimenting with, so give it a shot both ways and see what you think and just stick to whatever works best for you. And the second part of this question, thoughts on keeping the tension on the muscle and not locking out for a purely hypertrophic response. This is a great question, and it's going to depend on the exercise. So some exercises have a strength curve where at the end of the movement, there's like no tension on the muscle. And I think the best example of this is the squat. Now, constant tension works really, really well on the squat for just destroying your quads. Now, something like the pull-up, I'm not a big fan of constant tension reps for the pull-up because we want that stretch at the bottom of the pull-up. But if you're really trying to focus on blowing the quads up with the squat, constant tension works really, really well. Okay, next question. Thoughts on mechanical drop sets? Okay, good question. So mechanical drop sets, this is when you take an exercise to or close to failure and then you immediately continue performing repetitions with an easier variation of that exercise. So think of push-ups to failure or close to failure and then dropping down immediately to push-ups on your knees. Now, this is not something I'm personally really familiar with, like in my own training. I usually prefer straight sets, but in the research, it looks like this, that if volume is equated, there's not really an advantage to doing mechanical drop sets or drop sets of any kind. However, they do allow a very time-efficient approach for your training. So if you don't have a lot of time and you need to get a couple sets in, mechanical drop sets are going to be very, very efficient. But I imagine they're going to come at a higher fatigue cost, right? Because you are taking the muscle further than you are taking it otherwise. However, if you do straight sets, you perform a set relatively close to failure, rest completely, perform another set relatively close to failure. From my understanding of the literature, that's going to give you a relatively similar training stimulus as a set relatively close to failure and then a drop set after. So probably not more effective overall, but more time efficient, but that might come with a little bit more fatigue. So something you might want to experiment with. Next question. I agree with what you're saying to a degree, but doing high numbers of pull-ups at a slow cadence like that would be next to impossible. All the really good Euro calisthenics athletes advocate doing some days with strict form and some days with looser but faster form to get good at pulling explosively. The argument for this is to build work capacity, and even the New York City calisthenics guys who mostly do reps and sets for high volume say to do good form, but when you can't do full range of motion with say pull-ups or push-ups anymore, do shorties till you hit the desired rep goal. Shorties are just partial reps to keep time under tension. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you think those training modalities have a place in making you stronger? Yeah, this is a good question. So I do think they have a place, but here's the deal. It's like these are all just tools that you can use for particular goals. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you're going for just overall health and general fitness, my recommendation would be perform most of your sets through a full range of motion. And this is kind of what I feel should be your standard approach to a repetition. Now, as you get stronger, or if you want to do some dedicated hypertrophy work, or you're preparing for a competition or an assessment or something like that, then absolutely, varying tempo and working on partials and working on explosive reps, it definitely has a place. And these are very good options for introducing a little variety and kind of pushing past plateaus and stuff like that. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on rep ranges in regards to sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and myofibrillar hypertrophy? All right, this is a great question. So the theory goes like this, that if you do a lot of higher repetitions, you get muscular growth, but a lot of that muscular growth is just fluid in the muscle. It's not the actual contractile component of the muscle. The idea is that the fluid contains all of the energy producing components of the muscle. And if you do things that are energy intensive, that is going to increase in size as you cram more and more energy producing components into that fluid. Now, from my understanding of the research, we have seen that sarcoplasmic hypertrophy exists, so it does happen, but I don't think anyone is totally sure on how it happens or what repetition range happens or to what extent it accounts for the growth that we see in hypertrophy research. So that being said, I wouldn't really worry about it because high rep training still improve force production relative to fiber diameter. So you still get stronger. And even if this theory was right and it's just mostly metabolic machinery that you're developing with higher repetitions, well, that metabolic machinery is going to lead to greater work capacity, and more work capacity is going to lead to more productive strength work down the road if that's really what you're into. So overall, I don't think it's something you really need to worry about. You can just train in any repetition range, get pretty good growth. You're going to get some sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. You're going to get some myofibrillar hypertrophy. You're going to get bigger and stronger either way. So yeah, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about that. Next question. What is your advice for losing stubborn belly fat? Get leaner. All the things you do to lose regular belly fat, you just have to go further and longer. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on doing 2 exercises, 3 to 5 sets per session on a push-pull leg split? I'm a big fan of this training split, so I think push-pull legs is tried and true and works really, really well. And 3 to 5 sets of 2 exercises, that's going to give you between 12 and 20 sets per week, which is right in the sweet spot for muscular growth. All right, that's gonna be it for this Q&A. If you need me to go into more detail, just let me know. I hope I got everyone on this. If I didn't, just shoot me an email or leave me a message and I can answer your question, okay? So that's gonna be it this time. I'll see you guys in the next video.